Joining us now for reaction from Easley, South Carolina, is Pastor Mark Burns, who supported President Trump during the campaign. And with me here in Washington is Wendy Osefo, who's a Democratic strategist. It's great to see both of you. Happy MLK Day. Wendy, let's start with you. Tell me what I got wrong in that angle.
Well, first, we will start off by saying that the unemployment rate for African Americans was at 16.8% in 2010, and it went down to 7.9% last year under Obama. So Obama has started this trend. So for the president to take ownership of that is completely statistically dubious because he cannot. The president, Obama, was the one who started this trend. Second of all, when it comes to Trump, he hasn't done anything tangible that we can point to say that he's helped African Americans. What's really important here is causation does not equate correlation. Just because he's in the office does not mean he caused things to happen.
Oh, who does cause things to happen?
Well, we can point to Obama.
If you're the chief executive, in other words. So you want to give Obama credit. And I think
he deserves it. Well, at that time.
Okay, yeah. But I'm agreeing with you there. So you want to give Obama credit for working on the economy with the Republicans, because remember they had control of Congress, and so the unemployment did come down. Well, this is great. So he gets credit as chief executive, but when things go well, when Trump is chief executive, he doesn't get credit. I'm just confused about that.
No, because it's been on a downward trajectory for 8 years, so he hasn't done anything or implemented anything to make a change.
Downward trajectory?
It
what does that even mean?
It means it's gone from 16.8 to 7.9 last year. Also,
I thought you meant Trump was in a downward trajectory.
What Trump has done is he has rolled back civil liberties in the DOJ. We see that he's rescinded the grant, which makes it so that police officers and community have good relations. He says he's going to cut 121 people from the Civil Liberties Division, Civil Rights Division of the DOJ. I mean, he has done tangible things to hurt the community. And just
why is the numbers going up among African American men? 600,000 people surveyed, African American men and women. His numbers are going up. Why do you think that is? Are they just misguided, or?
It's not that they're misguided, but one thing I wanted to say that's really important before I let the pastor talk is that African American and black is not the same thing. When we talk about statistics and we use those words interchangeably, we're measuring for two different groups and populations, because when you say black, you're including Haitians, Nigerians, people from African diaspora. They do count, and that's why those statistics are more important, is the ones that survey black Americans, not the ones that just survey African Americans, because you're excluding a large majority of people.
I'm not sure they excluded anyone except, I think the entire survey was of all black people, regardless of derivation of where you came from. I'm pretty sure, but we'll check into that. Pastor Burns, Wendy said a lot. Your reaction?
Well, you know, I think it's sad that we, here in 2017, instead of focusing on the accomplishments of President Donald Trump within his first year of the presidency, not just what he's done for African Americans, or how I call it, black Americans, because I was always born and bred here in America. You know, I've never... I have descendants from Africa, but I'm an American. And the fact is, Dr. Martin Luther King did not fight and die so that we can inherit black America. He fought and died so that we as black people can be Americans. We already had black America in segregation. You went to black stores, black people assembled it together. You did not live, you lived in black communities, black neighborhoods. We already had black America. That's why Dr. King marched. That's why Rosa Parks sit down and didn't stand up. It's because we as black Americans, we fought, and Dr. King fought, and others before me fought so that we can be Americans. And the fact is, the Democratic Party will hone in on anything that will paint the president as racist, because it's a distraction of the real issue.
Well, what about my point?
Is, you already said it. African American unemployment is at an all-time low in the history of the unemployment under
President Donald Trump. It's never been recorded any lower. But my point, my deeper point in the angle is, the Democrats need to keep black Americans unhappy. And I know it's a horrible thing to feel, but I'm sorry. Dr. Steele said this today on my radio show. He's written about it for years. Without the perpetual I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim mentality that you drill into people's heads, you're a victim, you don't have an equal shot, you can't, if you work hard, you're not going to get ahead. What kind of a message is that to tell young people today? He went on and on about this today, and it was riveting radio. And I think when things are getting better and people refuse to acknowledge it and say, I'm a victim, I don't think that helps a single person get a job. I don't think it helps a single young African-American man or woman have more hope. I think it drags people down when people should be lifted up as they are in a growing economy. And Wendy, I'll let you respond.
Yeah, first of all, African Americans, Black Americans, we are not victims. We cannot say that. We are uplifted. Our communities are doing well. They can do better. The Democrats are not trying to victimize us by any way. And for us to paint that narrative is part of the problem. It's part of the problem. We are okay. We are doing well. We are striving. We are making ourselves better, and we can pull ourselves up from the bootstraps. But for us to think and not look at the systematic hurdles that our society has would be for us to be blind to what's going on in our country.
What systematic hurdles specifically right now are you referring to in the economy? If you work hard, if you all the studies, if you work hard, you stay out of jail, you wait until you're married to have kids, you have, like, what is it, Pastor, right, 85% chance of living a middle-class life in the United States. I mean, that's an irrefutable statistic.
And I'm glad you brought up the point of if you stay out of jail. It's easy to say if you stay out of jail if it's by your own volition. When we look at our criminal justice system, we see that when it comes to Black and brown individuals, our criminal justice system is harsher on Black and brown individuals. We can commit the same.
You just said we're not victims. That sounds like a victim.
No, we are not. We're not victims, but our society makes it such that if you commit a crime and you're Black and brown, you have a higher rate of being in prison than your white counterparts. That is a fact.
So do you believe that Chicago's crime rate is the fault of Donald Trump?
No.
Detroit, L.A., Oakland, Baltimore. Is that Donald Trump's fault?
It's not Donald Trump's fault.
Whose fault is it?
But there are policies. There are policies within our society that make it so that those issues continue to be perpetuated in Chicago.
Okay, well, there's a lot there. Criminal justice reform, that's a big topic. Probably can't handle that in 2 minutes. But, I mean, there is a huge crime problem that has been exacerbated by open borders. African-American families and young men are hurt by a glut of cheap labor that's crossed the borders that has hurt the lowest wage earners in the country more than anyone else. And Donald Trump's actually trying to do something about that, including MS-13, which is plaguing the inner city as well. But you can go ahead, Pastor.
So we don't want to talk about policies. We only want to talk about feelings. We don't want to talk about facts. We want to talk about feelings. Again, that President Trump has made it very clear that the only true way to eliminate those violent places like Chicago and Baltimore is to give real opportunities, to give real financial boost into these communities. It's not the police. It's the lack of opportunities. And when you look at the history of the world, from the French Revolution, from England, the revolution that's taken place, I don't care what color you are. If you feel like you're backed into the corner, and because of those few people who have and the majority who have not, I don't care what race you are, you eventually become violent when you're fighting over food. And that's what's happening in America. Listen, I said it earlier, Dr. King didn't die so that we can fight for bread. And the thing is, we keep talking about Black America or Black Americans like we're separate from Americans. We are Americans. What happens to me should happen to my brother, my sister, if you're an American. And the fact is, the Democratic Party for years who have used and abused the Black voice in America, that, we want to talk about what Donald Trump said in private meetings.
Yeah, well,
words do matter, but deeds matter more.
Well,
and the fact is, Democrats have been doing a lot of talking, but little deeds. That's
all right,
true.
Pastor, we're out of time. Wendy, I'm going to have you on radio. We can even have a longer segment. I'd love to have you both. It's a great conversation, and I actually think we can make some progress on this issue, and I really appreciate both of your voices. And by the way, the Democrats are threatening to shut down the government, speaking of a glut across the border, if they don't